One more time, please.
68202.
Wow! I didn't know we were gonna go right there. I was looking for the modest prediction. Expectations are sky high. The future is now, and there is so much at stake as the race for the first 200-mile-an-hour electric dragster run rages on. In this video, we are going to take you behind the scenes and reveal what one talented, driven, and maybe even obsessed racer is doing to make sure he's the first to this all-important historical milestone. Only one racer can be first, and every precious second counts. The search for more power, better acceleration, and maximum efficiency has been consuming. Settle in, relax, leave your opinions and expertise in the comments below. If you have a question, leave that as well.
Dawn's going down, that's all I gotta say about it. Oh, how about it?
As this team sends a special message to the legend, Don Garlits. Cycle Drag, what is up? How you doing, guys? Stick with us. We have an awesome story for you. Come on, let me explain. We are in Hawthorne, California. We are here at AEM Performance Electronics. This is one of the biggest names, one of the companies that leads the way in terms of innovation in motorsports. They're really known in the import car drag racing world. Now, why are we here in Hawthorne, California, you may ask? If you've been following along on the Cycle Drag YouTube channel, you know that we are incredibly enthralled and captivated by the battle to see who will be the first to run 200 miles an hour in an electric dragster. Yes, an electric dragster. Right now, you've got two big names gunning for it. Arguably the greatest drag racer of all time, Big Daddy Don Garlits. Who has the record at 189 miles an hour, and our friend Steve Hoff, the talented racer out of Seattle, Washington. Who's been 180 miles an hour. But guess what? Steve Hoff is here tonight. He's been here for several days getting major upgrades from the very smart folks at AEM, and he may just be setting himself up for the first 200-mile-an-hour run. Let's go inside. We're going to hear all about it. We're going to meet some of the brilliant minds of this company and get you up to speed. Come on. This place is awesome, and I am so pumped up. We've got so much to talk about. There is so much to see. My goodness, Mr. Kirk Miller.
Yes.
Very nice to meet you. Thank you
Great
so much for having us. Wow. Wow. I have heard about your company for years. I'm so excited to be here. Tell us a little bit about AEM.
Well, started in 1987. Started really as sort of like an engineering type company. If you've heard of Redline, they did the carburetor conversion kits. JC, John Conciati, was the founder of the company. And that's what he was doing in the earlier days, the carb conversion kits. From there, in the late 80s, early 90s, the tuning market started coming up. Turbocharged, small displacement engines making a tremendous amount of horsepower, doing standalone management, requiring special pistons, rods, internals like that. John, being an awesome engineer, was able to engineer products that could hold up to those rigors. So that was sort of the start of it. So our roots really was in the tuner market, small displacement, big power, big RPM. And from there, it has expanded and expanded and expanded. So we were known for tuned intake systems and carb exempt parts. We've introduced a fuel line, water methanol injection, standalone plug and play engine management systems, a wide range of gauges. Widebands, we're one of the leaders in wideband technology. We have the fastest responding wideband on the market. And now this year at PRI, we announced the EV product category. So we're so excited with what's going on right now. It's a really, people use frothy or bubbly, but the market is just really happening, but it's like nobody knows about it.
That's
People
right.
talking about it, but when you start getting to events and seeing it, it gets really exciting, and we're really excited to be a part of it.
Well, we're going to let a lot of people in right now. We are so excited. You are at the forefront of technology. To be involved in a project like this with Steve, which is basically a one-off. There's nobody doing quite what he's doing
Certainly not.
in the country. to use all your knowledge and your expertise and to help out a drag racer like this, chasing history, competing against Big Daddy Don Garlits. What's that mean to you?
It's just another part of the ride. It's awesome. You know, I have a hard time putting words to all this because it really is just surreal. You know, we were talking about this for the past couple of years, this market segment in particular. We were able to see who the players were within the industry, and now we're working with them. And a guy like Steve, I mean, he's out of control. You know, so a lot of the things that we've built into the system that the market has asked for, he's like, no, this is racing. I don't need total control. I want to be able to pedal this thing, you know, at 200. You know, so this is it's all unknowns. We're throwing everything we have at it for him, and still leaving the driving and the ultimate end control. It's all up to him. So this isn't some robot car that's just going to go down the line quiet. It's going to be a handful.
Can't wait to see. Speaking of Steve being out of control, I just realized he's in your shop alone. So why don't we go check up on him and see what he's doing?
It's been quiet.
Yeah, it's been very quiet. Let's go check in on Steve. Oh, I know Steve can't be too far. Let's go check in on what's going on here, guys. EM, how cool is this? Oh, there it is, and there he is, ladies and gentlemen. We heard the wild man was in the house. Hey, buddy, so good to see you, man. Probably not supposed to hug the Corona, right?
We'll have a Corona. Let's have a Corona.
It's true, it's worth it. We'll shower, we'll wash our clothes. Speaking of Corona, don't worry, I know a lot of you are cooped up inside. We're gonna give you some compelling entertainment.
Absolutely.
Because Steve, we're here. Last time we saw you at Fontana, you were chasing history.
Yeah.
The video went nuts. Thank you, Cycle Drag YouTube.
Thank you, everybody.
200,000 views on Cycle Drag YouTube. Unfortunately, you did not get what you were after.
Well, no.
To be here and to be hooked up with a company like AEM,
Absolutely.
I think the game is changing a little bit, isn't it?
It is. And, you know, Jack, what we learned last time, again, the clutch, the whole program as proof of concept, it works great. We had our best 60-foot times we'd ever had. You know, it was carrying, hiking the front tires over the 60-foot cone and shift. The car was launching quickly, but...
Sounds good. Nice, clean launch.
But, as anybody that races knows, at the end of the day, it's a horsepower game. You can get some quicker 60-foot times and short track times and intervals, but it's maybe a slower mile an hour at the big end. And we go back and forth. You know, collectively, our best ET is 795. Our best mile per hour is 180.8. And we could go back and forth from there to try and get those two things at once. We just weren't going to get there, and we certainly weren't going to get 200 out of it. Anybody that races knows you're not, 180 mile an hour car will never be a 200 mile per hour car until you make some big wholesale changes. And I wanted to make some big wholesale changes, so I picked up the phone and called Kirk at AEM. There's a lot of motorcycle guys that are running their stuff. We've run it in cars, we've run it in motorcycles. And they're new stuff. Man, it's just, I mean, we're just, this is one that we're getting.
Come on in here, take a look at this.
This is,
To be clear, that's not our product.
no, but
This is what's coming off.
we're taking this off, and I have to say, honestly, this is 25% of what was on the vehicle, and we were going to have to double that in this traditional type of wiring, and this particular one wasn't really working well. AEM's come out with some new products. One of those, a CAN-based controller, a VCM, vehicle control module. So I had a wish list, and I called AEM, and they said, it's no problem. We got you. So I came back down here. You know, I had a ruptured kidney after that last time that you saw me. I've been out for a little while.
I'm glad you're doing better than health-wise, right?
Yep,
Good,
everything's
good.
going
That's
good.
important.
And so we got back down here to California looking for some sunshine, and said we got rain and coronavirus. But we still got AEM, and we've got the shop here. They welcomed us to come on in because I told you we needed a big wholesale change if we wanted to get that 200. So brother, we did it. We just doubled our horsepower.
Double the horsepower. Double the horsepower. Did you hear that? Well, let's take a closer look at the car and what exactly is going
We'll show you
on.
what happened.
So taking a look at this awesome vehicle, before we get into what's new, let's go over some stats here. Your all-time best run to date, again?
Best ET 795, the best mile per hour 180.8.
Excellent. The best you did at Fontana was?
I think we ran we ran some 8.0s, and we ran 178.
178. So it's been tough you've made a lot of changes to this car. I know you guys have worked so hard. When you work that hard and you go out and you don't get a personal best, that's got to be frustrating, right? I mean, how was that?
It is, but Fontana, with the clutch and the 3-speed, it was the best 60-foot times we ever had by a long shot. If we were 8th mile racing, we had great improvements, but we're not 8th mile racing. So,
had some impressive runs throughout the weekend. Final run coming up. Steve Hoff and Current Technology. .410's flash. This electric machine making some big time power. 814.
Yeah, this is kind of the 4th version of the car. So, by what I mean by that, we've tried 2 different types of motors. We've tried them with flywheel and clutch. We've tried it direct drive. We've tried a number of ways, and it's always very close to being the same thing. Some combinations are quick, some combinations are fast, and horsepower is miles per hour, and torque is ET. So we need a little bit more of both if we're going to be on top of this. And I think what we've got today, our new combination, version number 4.0, I think we've really got it. We still have our incredible battery.
Fell in love with driving in 1989 and said he will drive anything.
So we're going to start, we still have the same battery. Part of our problem, we weren't utilizing all of the amperage available in our battery. This is an 800 volt battery capable of putting out 2,000 amps. We were only pulling 1,400 amps off of it. So that'd be like putting an extra 20 gallons of gas in your Nova when you wanted to make a pass. It's senseless. So we're taking down the track a lot of stored energy that we weren't using. Also in the trailer, we had an extra motor and 2 extra controllers. And when I say an extra motor, these are dual stack motors. So we had 2 motors in the car and 2 controllers. We were only using about 2/3, just 60% of the battery capacity. We've decided now to turn the battery all the way up. And to do that, we've added 2 more controllers and 2 more motors. So we started here with our 800 volts, and we take these big hot rod cables here, we plug them on in. And then that 800 volts DC comes up here. I built a new contactor box. Each of these fuses goes to an individual controller. Each controller then inverts it to AC electricity, 3-phase, 800 volts to each individual motor. Where before we had 1 negative and 2 positives. Now we have 4 positives, 2 negatives. So now we're going to put 500 amps into each motor. Collectively 2,000 amp draw off of the battery. So it's going to be a hell of a lot more power.
Wow, amazing.
These are the controllers. And if you recall, on the other side of the vehicle, we used to have the belt drive in this area. Now we've added a couple of controllers in here, and the motors are down under here. They're wrapped in these blankets. Scott Owens made us these blankets. So they're ballistic blankets, SFI approved. Scott would typically use them for his transmissions. We put them on for safety, but there are 2 motors under each one of these controllers. Each motor is liquid cooled. These controllers are liquid cooled. That's what the radiator is for on the other side of the vehicle. Back here, I'm getting ready to check our sprockets for run out. We water jet out these sprockets. They're on beautiful worldwide bearings from old Dave.
How about that?
Yeah, that's right. So we still have sprockets. We still have worldwide bearings in there. But we have no belt drive this time.
No belt drive. What's your thoughts on that? Because I know for a long time you were belt drive guy, right?
And I got to tell you, it is faster. We've proven it. When we can launch with the clutch and the flywheel mass, we store a lot of energy in this flywheel, angular momentum. That thing was 50 pounds, 12.5-inch diameter. When we were launching on a button and that was spinning 5,000 to 6,000 RPMs on the launch, it's a lot of stored energy. In drag racing, we get a chance to store energy before the light turns green. So we don't have to get that flywheel up to speed. That's why guys launch at high RPMs. Whether it's an IC engine or an electric motor, it works better. If you launch your internal combustion engine in a low RPM, you don't have that big mass and the car wants to bog or the motorcycle wants to bog. So we're always working on the 2-step and always keep getting that thing up there where there's enough inertia and energy to move the bike forward or the car forward instead of pulling the engine RPMs down, or in our case, motor RPMs. If you look under here, I made a coupler sprocket that's down here in between these 2 motors. So you'll see that there's 2 sprockets on this coupler. So instead of the shaft sticking out running a belt drive, now the shaft is pointed inward. Now, this motor was mounted with the shaft pointed inward. I made a splined coupler with two 19-tooth sprockets on it. And that will come back to two 67-tooth rear sprockets. They'll stack up inside of here, right next to each other. And again, we're just check and run out on these things. But those ultimately go on the inside. And so we will be running a pair of 630 chains. Those big old chains that we get from Pingle with old buddy Larry's picture on them.
I love it. So I got to step in here. You're a former Nitro Harley guy. You're a motorcycle guy. Is this thing becoming a lot more motorcycle-like?
Well, I think it was with the belt drive, it was more motorcycle, but it's always been that. The Top Fuel guys and the motorcycle guys in general are very innovative. And my teacher, man, Jim McClure, wasn't much better, and he, these guys, they do a lot of thinking, and we can combine these things. We're not mutually exclusive to anything, and even things like bringing in AEM on an electric car, AEMs on motorcycles, they're on cars, they're on off-road vehicles. Now the electric vehicle market, we're racers. We race because we want to solve problems that others may not be able to solve, or we want to solve the problems better than others. And if we can solve the problems better than our competitors, then we win. And that's why we do it. There's a little ego side to it, but a lot of it's just self-motivated individuals that want to think and solve problems. It's makes at least me a little bit of a spaz and weird, but I enjoy it. We do have a 12-volt system that we run in here. I mean, anti-gravity batteries. Guys in the motorcycle world, they're very familiar with these things. I mean, they're ultra lightweight. It's the best battery made. We use them in all sorts of motorcycles. I'm sure I use one in my truck. These guys are great. They're not far from here. So this system runs our water pump, our electronics. It's just a 12-volt battery. And if you don't have one of these on your motorcycle, you need one. This gets mounted in here. AEM just set us up with a really cool new billet clamp. I mean, they've got all of the solutions. We also have a battery monitor from AEM that constantly, in real time, via Bluetooth, it monitors the condition of our batteries. So there's an app on my phone. Wow. Anybody can download it. There's an app on your phone, and you can just check if you're within 200 feet of your vehicle, if your bike's parked outside or something. You can just look at your phone. It also has a 31-day history of your battery. It kind of checks your charging system, and these things are really, really cool, especially at the racetrack when we don't know where our battery is. I mean, I've forgotten it. I gotta say, probably all of us have forgotten a little something, but you just look at your phone. I know the state of condition that my battery's in. A handy little thing from anti-gravity. So check those guys out. We've got our conventionally, we're back into our contactors, and we just have double the motor now.
Double the motor.
Yeah, double the motor. So
wow. You were inspired after that last Fontana session, weren't you?
I was, and we had intended on coming back and trying this back in February, but unfortunately due to some health things, I wasn't able to.
Well,
the University of Washington, the University of Washington's got me all straightened out. They're incredible people there, and they got me straightened out and back on the track.
I can let you in on a little insight that I found out. I texted you. I had a recent stop to Ocala, Florida. The Mecca, our good friend, the legend, the icon, Big Daddy Don Garlits, he was not there that day, but everybody told me, because I mentioned electric dragster, they said Don is consumed by this. Don has to be first.
Oh, no.
He is living to be first. Now I'm looking at you and I see that same mentality. You guys are sprinting.
I'm not stopping at anything. We are staying here in California until we do it. We cannot fit any more room. There's nobody in history that has a battery of this capacity. We are now have enough motor to take advantage of our full capacity, which we have never, ever, ever come close to doing. So we're going to do it now. It is going to be direct drive. When we have to go give this one a shot because it's a race, man. I mean, he wants it, I want it. There's a couple other players that are out there too. So nobody's going to wait for me. I'm certainly not going to wait for Don. So we're out to try it. If it doesn't do it, then I'm going to put a clutch on this version because I know a clutch will make it faster. If this does do it, then I get a little bit of breathing room and we'll be able to still put a clutch on it and go a little faster. So
we know there can only be one that can be first.
Yep.
What would it mean to you if you end up being the guy?
It's it would be pretty awesome, you know. Again, my mentor, McClure, you know, he was the first to a lot of things. Garlits has been the first to a lot of things.
A lot.
A lot, man. And just to have my name mentioned in the same sentence as some people like that. You know, as a kid, I never, ever thought I'd be here. And I have so much confidence that we will do it. I know there's no quit in this team. I guarantee you that. And we will not quit. We will not. I'm not stopping for anything else. So I've postponed some of my other races. We're going to get this. It'd mean a hell of a lot, Jack.
And there goes Steve Hoff, looking for history. There's so much technology, so much innovation. We want to know your comments down below too. Let us know, who do you think will be the first to 200? Will it be Steve Hoff? Will it be Big Daddy Don Garlits? Will it be somebody else that we're not even talking about? We know more competitors are emerging, and we know that this is going to take a whole lot of hard work, and there's a lot of people gunning for it. Steve, could you again just rattle off, in layman's terms, what's new on this car from AEM? And I must warn you, Big Daddy Don Garlits may be watching this. I know his is a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
But can you give us this inside ball game, this inside?
I'll let you in on a couple little secrets. So, I mean, what everybody will see is the new AEM CD7 dashboard. It's a 7-inch display. I mean, the colors, the infinite adjustability in it. We can toggle back and forth. You'll see this mounted up on the dashboard of the car. And we're preparing this. So CD7, CD for CAN display. That big rat's nest of wires I showed you before, all now goes through. Oops. That big rat's nest of wires I showed you before, all now basically goes through 3 wires.
That's amazing.
A CAN high, a CAN low, and a CAN shield. And with this, we can send controls into PDUs. Kirk can probably explain a PDU a little better for you.
Yeah, so what's fun about the CAN, he showed the rat's nest earlier of the wires.
Yes.
We're talking about the CAN, you think of a phone line. You know, how many different things can travel over a single phone line? This is very similar. This dash, it's a logging dash. It also has internal GPS, so he can gather data from the track in his runs, but it also can monitor everything that's going on in the vehicle that the VCU's seeing and other devices can kick up via CAN. So some of the loggers out there, they talk about having 100 channel capability or 200 channel. We're running ours at about 2,000 channels of data coming up into the dash. It's fascinating the amount of information that's coming up there, and it's usable data, not during the run, but post.
What we get to see what's happening inside of these inverters, inside their processors. So we get to see everything from the amperage use, the voltage drop, the RPMs, we get to see the phasing on the resolvers. Everything is there. And through just a couple of wires.
Well, that's my biggest question to Kirk. You have more channels here, but way less wires. How is that possible?
It's CAN. It's it's actually just data over a line. That's what it is. But unlike just data coming into something, it's also communicating back out. So what's nice is when we get to really, this is the brain. This is the VCU 300. We have 2 different iterations of this. We have a 200 and a 300. The 200's its baby brother. This one can handle 4 inverters, 4 motors, 4 of everything.
And 4 of those 2,000 channel CAN systems. So we have 8,000 channels that we can
if we
get
wanted
into.
to look at, we stopped actually at 6,500 channels coming in. So it can
Oh
be
my
a tremendous
gosh.
amount of information, but it's really not even just about, hey, these big numbers. It's about what you can do with it.
Yeah.
So with these devices all being CAN based, so you have a keypad. And usually when you see a keypad, you have 8 keys. There'd usually be at minimum 2 wires per key, but maybe 3 if you're going to light it, or 4 if you're going to have 2 different color lights. What's on the back is 4 wires. So you have your CAN information in and out. So this is communicating with the system, and then you have different color lights for different, on-off settings. So, but the beauty here is again the neatness and the cleanness of this. So you're taking some of the things that are so incredibly critical to the process, meaning the wiring. You're taking a lot of that out of the equation on the analog side. It's digital. What it also allows us to do with the VCU, Steve was talking about 4 motors and all this energy and all this power, and then there's this little tiny anti-gravity battery, 12-volt circuit. So you really have 2 systems running in parallel. You have your high voltage, and then you have your 12-volt system, which is all these devices. The reason for that is you don't want 800 volts running through this whole chassis all the time, so you have to step down someplace, do control, and then you have your inverters to change things around. So that's with the 4 motors. What's really amazing and what this can do is, when you think about it, what he did, he had 2 motors on one side, now he's got 2 motors on the other side. Well, the motors on the other side actually have to spin in reverse, in sync with the other motors spinning forward. So we're able to control all that with the VCU just through some simple programming.
Well, I wouldn't say simple programming, but you guys are the experts. So
Yeah,
do that one.
I love it. There's guys way smarter than me.
Even things like our thermocouplers, our thermocoupler plug. So, I mean, this can handle up to 8 channels here, just in thermocoupler plug-ins, and at the end of it, 4 wires. That's it. So gone are all these big, massive boxes or these awkward plugs and stacking things on top of each other over and over, and it has simplified it for today's racer. You can get these things for electric vehicles and IC engines. I mean, these guys have an internal combustion engine vehicle control modules, or ECMs, that are, again, similar to what we're looking at right here. And no nitrous controllers, but you've got methanol water injection systems, and you've got O2 wideband lambda sensors, wideband WeGo systems that are second to none. So I was so happy to be able to get connected with AEM here. I mean, we have thousands of feet of wire being narrowed down to a handful of pins now. And when I'm talking about all of these things in our electric car, each of these wiring ends are gold plated. I mean, what was I paying for those wiring things? $1.20 a piece, or
just for a tiny little pin?
$1.80 for a pin, and we go through hundreds of them. And of course, there's a gold plated pin here, and
Wow.
Yeah, so now we have very few gold plated pins, and gold isn't very inexpensive. So this is a great system, man.
So, but one of the features that we listen to people talk about, and you're talking about the wiring again, we have these little modules. They're called PDUs, a power distribution unit. People say PDMs, power distribution modules. Historically, a power distribution module is fairly substantial in size, something reminiscent of this. It can be 100 wires. The challenge there is you've got this awesome PDU or PDM, power distribution module, that is programmable. So then it can send information out, or power out to the vehicle where it's needed. But it has to be programmed, and it has to communicate with other devices. And then you're back to sort of square one. You've got all your wiring in one spot in the center of the vehicle, running all over this 20-foot vehicle, or whatever vehicle you're using. Our theory with this was, this is 8 channels. You can stack up to 8 of these, so you can get up to 64 channels of analog out power. But what you can actually do is, if you have a vehicle and you need power in the front, you put a module in the front. You need power in the back, and that's to drive pumps, fans, different other devices that you might need. And these are slaves, so they're not programmed. The VCU is communicating via CAN, telling this what to do. So this just, again, it kind of neatens up the vehicle a lot. And some of the racing we're involved with in rallycross and drift, they're tearing corners off the car. Sure. When you tear a corner off a car, you're now looking at an entire vehicle harness. That's gone with this setup. So these are, AEM, we're really fortunate. There's a lot of racers who work here, and we're very close with a lot of different race teams and many, many different disciplines. So we're blessed with this constant flow of information and needs. And then we're blessed to have really talented engineers that can actually execute and deliver on products like
when
this.
I had told these guys I wanted to be on launch on a 2-step, and they didn't reply like a typical electrical engineer would. They said, "Oh, okay, no problem." I was like, "All right, man, this is what we want to hear." And
don't give up some of the secrets.
Hey, the more we can give, the better. Let's not.
He was here for only a couple hours, and 2 engineers came down and said, "Hey,
what if we did this? What if we did that? Would that be helpful? He's like, yeah, that'd be great. Okay, we could do it. So
I love that. And Steve, something you mentioned in Fontana that was on our video that really brings this thing down to layman's terms is you talked about how engineers see things one way, drag racers see things another way, and when they team up and get together and you really deal with the application and real numbers on the drag strip, amazing things happen. Is that what you're finding here?
Oh, yeah, but there was no gap in communication. There was no stopgap there. It was seamless. So I mean, these guys knew what I was talking about. We didn't need a translator. I didn't need to break out Math 101. They didn't need to try and figure out how to race. They already knew that. They realized that we kind of knew what we were talking about, and it just worked out really well. And on motorcycles, especially, you know, we have such limited space, and we've seen it, and most of the wiring's exposed because we don't have anything to hide it behind. It's just a bare bones. We want these things as small, as light as possible, and then this helps. The rolls of wire add up. All of these Deutsch connectors add up. You know, we try and save ounces over and over to ultimately make up a pound, and so all of this adds up. And I couldn't be more impressed. They've far exceeded my expectations, and then welcoming us in here. I know that's a rare thing, and it's an honor, and I have to thank you, Kirk. We're going to go out and get this thing done. And
yeah, he's opened up his shop quite a bit for you guys. He has done a lot here. And
by the way, it's not me. This is a company. It is a phenomenal team. I wish everyone was here. It's a little bit late, but it is an amazing group of people.
Sure, and when we're talking about your engineers, I wanted to correct myself that doesn't really apply to what Steve threw out there, because obviously you guys are in the know when it comes to drag racing. Absolutely. And speaking of that, since you guys are both drag racing guys, here comes the $1 million question, okay? We looked at all these great products. We can tell that you're gonna have more efficiency, you're gonna have more power, you've got a better product, you're even gonna lose some weight because you drop all those wires. What's that gonna translate to on the track? Are we talking?
68202.
One more time, please.
68202.
Wow, I didn't know we were gonna go right there. I was looking for the modest prediction. Nope. I was looking for maybe 5 mile an hour. All right, so Steve, I know that you can back those numbers up and you're well studied. Tell me what leads you to that conclusion.
You know, each time we've gone out before, I thought, let's go try this. I think that this can get us closer. We're going to learn something when we go try this. And now, you know, now it's kind of math. You know, the horsepower versus the weight. It's almost, I'm not going to say it's a no-brainer. We have to have everything right. We have to manage our torque properly. I'm going to do this without traction control. You know, They asked me, they said, Steve, do you want traction control? I said, no, I don't want traction control. We're racers, man. When I had the transmission in the car, I was shifting manually. We were setting our clutch, man. We don't want traction control. We want to go out and race. If I screw up on the track tune-up, then I spin the tire and I don't do it. We're not looking for a remote control car. And these guys respected that, and they said, we get it, and so we're going to go do it. It might take a few passes to get the power down to the ground. We've all had problems with that, but this time we're running the big tire. So
next to Tinhauser, far side.
We're gonna go.
Oh my goodness. Steve,
we've gone back to the
what happened to those small tires you had on in Fontana?
Well, you know, I've had
Holy moly.
These, Jack, but, you know,
holy
the bigger
moly.
tire that you put on, the more horsepower you have to use turning it. So we've gone back and forth from the big tire to the small tire. Now I know we're going to need the big tire.
Well, that's interesting, because I know we had that conversation last time and you were concerned about parasitic drag. Yeah. You said don't make the tire too big, but now the game has changed, right?
Well, it is. Now we've got enough horsepower that we will hopefully require it. And the other part, you mentioned that, Jack, the parasitic loss, even through a planetary transmission, through a belt drive, every time that power changes direction, we had to take a little bit of a loss.
And there goes Steve Hoff, looking for history. Oh, you can hear those tires crinkle.
Yeah, Jack, so it's good that you mentioned that, the parasitic loss. You know, our motor previously was rated at 900 foot-pounds of torque. But I measured it on the dyno, it was only, we'd lost 14% of that. You know, and of course we assume that that's all parasitic loss, that the motor was actually making what the nominal amount of data we were getting reflected. So Now we really have no parasitic loss. We have 2 roller chains. A roller chain is the most efficient form of energy transfer, the least amount of parasitic loss. We will have 2 of them, but we keep these chains pretty loose. We don't expect them to last for a long time. They don't have any O-rings on them. Our rear axle, our bearings, everything, the least drag that we have, the better off we are. Manual transmission car on a dyno, people generally say it's 10% loss. An automatic transmission car on a dyno, they'll generally say it's 20%. We were measuring about 15%. That belt drive and all of that weight, this car is actually lighter than it was the last time we went out. That clutch basket, that big clutch that we made, that was massively heavy. And 2 planetary 2-speeds, a 50-pound flywheel, all of the belt drive bracketry, the pulleys, the sinusoidal splined hub, everything being gone from the car. The car's coming in 30 pounds lighter now.
Wow,
even though
that's significant.
And it has an extra motor and 2 extra controllers. So,
what's the total weight now?
2,000 pounds.
2,000 pounds.
Yeah, it was 2,030. So now we have nearly doubled our horsepower and lost 30 pounds.
Man, this is awesome. To back you up for 1 second here, I got to ask you, how many hours total do you think? Back people up. Somebody's watching this for the first time. Somebody has just discovered Steve Hoff, and we do invite them to check out all the video of you racing that we have. But if somebody's just watching this for the first time, when did you start this project, and how many hours do you have in it?
Well, I started it in 2016, and in fact, I started it because I heard an interview with Don Garlits, and I'd never heard of this quest for 200, and it caught my attention, and I thought, what's he talking about? And then he started to talk about this quest for 200 and his first to 200 accomplishment in 1964 in a top fuel car, and he wanted to be the first to 200 in an electric car. And I had designed this chassis. Typically it was shorter, and we were transverse mounting 2-liter turbo engines, small block Chevys, and I thought, hey, I could transverse mount an electric motor, stretch it out a little bit to fit a battery in there. And then it was Don that said that in 2017 that he just didn't think that it was possible at that time with current technology. I thought, well, what the hell? I think I can do it. And we named the car Current Technology. So
I love it.
That's how it came about.
Where's that logo at? Is it around here?
It's in the body.
Okay, it's in the body. Current Technology. That is a brilliant name.
But,
did Don mean to make a pun when he said that?
No.
Current Technology?
No, it's just, and where technology was.
Because I love your name. It's a great name.
I don't know that he was far off. I felt like that was a great challenge, and to compete against and have an opportunity to compete against. It's not always about winning, it's having an opportunity to win and having an opportunity to be the starting line. I'd love to death to be able to race him, but we live on opposite corners of this great country of ours, and that opportunity just hasn't come up yet.
I'm glad you brought that up. This is probably a horrible time to have this discussion because we've just been infected with unprecedented coronavirus cancellations. This is crazy. This is a once in a lifetime.
Gator Nationals canceled.
Gator Nationals. And I'll tell you, as of last night, NHRA was pointing to, we're going to get this event in. We're going to continue business as usual. There will just be some hand sanitizers, but Florida governor steps in. Long story short, they are canceled. Corona aside, when we do get back to normal, what do you think the chances are that we could set up a Hoff versus Garlits showdown?
I'm ready. I'll travel.
And you're willing to go to him, right?
Absolutely, without a question. I'd love to see it. It'd be a great war of the currents, man. That movie's about ready to come out also. AC versus DC, Tesla versus Edison. I mean, it would be a battle of the decade. And we have the AC world record. Don's got the DC world record. We're only a few miles off from one another. I know I made some upgrades, and I damn well guarantee he's made some upgrades. He is not sitting on his hands, and he's not sitting back satisfied. Neither of us have hit 200, and the man's going to give it everything he's got. I'm giving it everything I've got. I've got a great partner in this, Larry Carroll. I've got Derek Barter in here. I brought him in to just control all of this. He's been teaching me, just like McClure taught me, just like Alan Sputh taught me. If you want to be great, you need some great teachers, and I've got the best battery guy that there is. And my partner, Larry Carroll. Larry is, unfortunately, he's in Montana right now again. And, he's taken some pretty big hits over this last few days, but, we get Larry out here, and Larry's an oil man. So for an oil man to help me out and back me on a project, an electric project, was even cooler. The hours that I have into this, I can't count.
There's not too much lubrication needed here, huh?
No, not a lot. You know, I mean, oddly enough, you know, all this polycarbonate's made out of, you know, this is all a petroleum product. All this plastic and rubber is a petroleum product. These lithium batteries take a tremendous amount of petroleum to manufacture. So with the rubber, you know, petroleum is important. Nothing can be done without it. I'm reminded of that frequently. You know, we need it, and you know, a lot of it was used in the construction of this vehicle, but no elephants were harmed.
I love it. Sounds good. Nice clean launch. Steve Hoff looking for a big one here. Beautiful Southern California mountains in the background. How about a Steve, I'm glad moments ago you brought up AC versus DC, okay? Because you and Don Garlits, although you represent two guys going for this, there's only a couple that we know of, right? There's only two that I know of. You said there may be a few others.
Yeah, John Metric, you know, he's got a car out there, extinction level.
But there's only a few. There's only a few. And you and Don Garlits are on opposite ends. Explain this AC versus DC. You told me in our last interview, you were like, look, AC is like your refrigerator. It will never wear out. The chassis will wear out before my motor wears out. And then you have Don Garlits over on the DC side, which I do believe the DC school of thought is that they can make more power.
They do.
Fill me in.
They do. This DC power off of the line from initial startup is more. It is. I mean, it's all, they talk about electric motors being all there right away. It's, you know, go over to your bench grinder. When you turn on your bench grinder, you can hold the grinding wheel with 2 fingers. Don't do this because I said so, but
yeah, be safe.
But,
be safe.
You know, you can turn that thing on. My idea about the clutch, you know, let go of that grinder wheel. Now try and grab it. And that's what we're launching with. Our AC motor, when you first turn it on, it's just not all quite there. Now you do that. That's with your AC bench grinder. Now go take your DC cordless tool and try and hold that thing back. I mean, DC power is a lot, man. It makes a lot of power per volt, but it comes at a price. That price is a lot of sparks, a lot of things that wear out, moving and parts that rub against one another, and they have a high failure rate.
Brush systems,
yeah, and the AC motor just doesn't have that. So what we want to do is, ultimately, is take this car out on an exhibition tour this year and be able to go from track to track on exhibition, maybe do some match racing, and be able to repeat our numbers over and over and over with an incredibly low maintenance cost, if any, other than the consumables, the things like the chains, the brake pads, and of course tires, because we like leaving big old burnouts for the crowd since we don't give any noise.
Yeah, no doubt. Kirk, I gotta get your take on this AC versus DC debate. Where do you stand?
I'm an AC guy.
Okay.
DC is awesome, to Steve's point, you know, with the power available per volt. But the challenge, in my opinion, is the fact that in many cases, it's a brush system. So if it's working and you have movement, that's great. But when you have an initial huge current pull, it could be, if that motor's not spinning fast enough or at all, it's a direct short and it's meltdown. So I don't like that. Steve knows from our first conversation, it's safety, safety, safety. This is deadly. You know what we're talking about, AC or DC, the currents and voltages you're talking about. So if you have a situation where you're pretty sure things can go sideways really quick, the DC motor, again, in my opinion, is that if you have two equations, which one's going to be safer and which one's going to get the job done? In my opinion, AC is going to get it done, and it's going to be in a safer fashion, and to Steve's point again, more repeatable and less.
And we don't see any OEMs coming out with DC cars. I mean, I appreciate it. It's significantly more affordable. There's more stuff available. But then the OEMs, from Tesla to Ford to General Motors, I mean, they're all AC vehicles. Every import, the electric motorcycles, those are all AC vehicles. And it's because they're going to be able to go out and get hundreds of thousands of miles without any service. And on a race car, we're not always looking for hundreds of thousands of miles, but we're laying the coal to it. I mean, we're not screwing around on this. It's like putting 10 batteries in a Tesla. And so we're going to hit it pretty hard. We have contactors, which are just what they talk about. I mean, there's inside of here a big set of points, and sometimes these things will weld themselves together. Now we get a chance to monitor these, so we'll be able to see if they're starting to get resistance in them, if the impedance is changing. Now we'll see if they're failing, if they're not failing. Some of these DC systems are just not. Yeah, it's not as repeatable, we're going to say.
And one of the other parts of that is for us to be able to capture data, and with the inverters for the AC motors, they tend to have a lot of information available. Again, Steve's point, right on. OEMs are really sophisticated. There's a tremendous amount of R&D that have gone into those control devices. Well, they're looking at things that people aren't even thinking that they need to look at. Well, we get to see that, because we're piggybacking on those developments to a degree.
Yeah, and we've got the latest in controllers. I mean, this is Reinhardt Motion Systems. Now the company's called Cascadia, but these controllers are in the world's best electric vehicles. We have 4 of them. Those motors, we may have touched base on it before. Those are developed by a company in Switzerland called Phi Power. It's an axial flux motor, a slightly different take on a conventional AC motor, which the magnets would just be on a tube. On these, the magnets are on a disc brake rotor, so it's like a stroker motor. A lot longer leverage arm, and we get a little more leverage, get even more torque. So I think we've got the latest in stuff. Does that mean it's the fastest? No, not at all, not yet.
Well, that brings up a question I have for you, okay? Because you guys sold me on AC, and I am not educated enough to debate you guys, but I just want to say, let's play devil's advocate and flip this thing. In Ocala, Florida right now, they're having the same debate, and Don Garlits is talking about all the reasons why he should stay DC. He's saying, I'm only 11 mile an hour away, Steve Hoff's 20 mile an hour away, DC is the way. Why do you think Don Garlits is sticking with DC?
I don't know. I can't answer that. It's the same reason I'm sticking with AC. He believes in it.
He believes in it.
It's a pretty small unit for the horsepower per weight. He's got it. This car's a hell of a lot lighter than this car. I think his car's coming in at 1,300 pounds or something. Was last I heard Rodney talk about. This car's these AC motors, all the controllers. It's heavy stuff. Small DC motor is for what it's worth, it's a hell of a lot of power, and it's like a bottle of nitrous. But when shit goes wrong,
And how would you measure the how would you measure the power here? Is it a horsepower rating?
Oh yeah, horsepower, and so at 7,200 RPMs, this is 1,100 horsepower.
Wow, 1,100 horsepower.
At 7,200 RPMs, it's linear all the way up. We have a flat torque curve at 920 foot-pounds per motor. So that's what we were racing at. Now we're at 2,000 horsepower.
You're at 2,000 horsepower.
Yeah, we just doubled it.
So with those numbers, you have eclipsed a Top Fuel motorcycle.
Oh, yeah.
You've eclipsed a monster truck.
Yeah, but the Top Fuel motorcycle still comes in lighter than this again. So
sure.
So we're not going to be dipping down in the 6s. We're not getting into the 5s like Larry. And if we estimated my old bike from McClure at about 1,000 horsepower, that thing, it ran the best of 642, 226, and that bike held the record for a long time. That was with me on it. I didn't run those numbers, but Jim did. But with me on it, it was I think it was 1,090 pounds or something, 1,100 pounds. So we're double the weight, but also double the horsepower. So
Steve,
I think we've got it.
You are a bike guy. You just mentioned bikes. Any desire to do this on a motorcycle?
Yes, absolutely.
That didn't take long, did it? That's what I love about interviewing Steve. He comes right out and says it.
No, I think that we have, I've got another project I want to work on. I ran it by Robbie Gordon the other day. We were at the Mint 400, where, by the way, we did really well.
Congratulations.
We're on another podium finish there in the Super Hooligan Series. So I was talking to Robbie about doing an electric super stadium truck, stadium super truck, maybe a side by side.
Wow.
So there's that side, but as far as the electric bikes go, I think I'm going back to Bonneville. I'll just leave it at that.
Whoa, a little teaser. Okay, so both you guys are motorcycle guys. Harley Livewire. You digging it? Did they get it right?
I don't know. I heard they were talking about adding sound to it. That hurt me.
I'll tell you what the most exciting thing in electric motorcycles is. It's coming out. It's Lightning Motorcycles. They're bringing out, Richard at Lightning Motorcycles is bringing out a production version. And I don't know how much I should talk about it, but just hold still for a minute on electric motorcycles.
There's a lot coming.
There's a lot coming.
There's a whole lot coming. The industry, one of the reasons why we are here today, I do have to say that I don't know that the industry had much interest in electric vehicles when we first built this project. It was, I don't think that the industry was really ready for it. We had to wait for even some companies like AEM, that was getting into the electric thing to get some interest in this electric stuff. Other companies, industry-related companies, racing-related companies, electric was really kind of a novelty. Now they see it was real. I remember in 2017, people said to me, "Oh, this is the future." I said, "No, man, you can touch it. This is now." But it's taken a while for the electric thing to not be just a fad, or to prove that it's not just a fad. And there's guys that have been doing it for a long time, man. Derek over here, Derek is responsible for a lot of records. And he has been involved in electric racing before I even knew about it. So, I'm the new guy to this. I'm the new guy to the electric stuff, and it's just a lot of fun. We get a chance to go in and work with a lot of schools. That's why all of these boxes are clear, and I've decided I'm putting the contactors up here. It keeps the cables short, but we can explain this is where the electricity goes in, this is where it goes out, this is where it changes into AC, and how it goes into the motor. So when students look at this, or people that are just thinking about getting into it, this vehicle, we've left everything out in the open. It looks complicated. It kind of is, but at the end of the day,
it's sophisticated.
Sophisticated.
There you go. Yeah.
And
Sophisticated.
one of the things that you talk about the schools and the educational process, what's really awesome about this is that guys and girls that really don't have the time to learn about all the mechanical systems that go into an ICE, an internal combustion engine. This is a lot easier to a degree to get involved with. It's not as dirty. There's not nearly as many systems that require fluids. So it's easier.
Very few moving parts. And getting, I own a motorcycle shop there in Seattle, right, at Hoff Motorsports, and what we're seeing is this popularity. I was at a flat track race the other night, and the kids riding the electric bikes, there were 40 of them. And so parents that are looking for something for their kids to get into motorcycling, these electric motorcycles for the youth are fantastic. You don't have to clean the carburetor out every time that you want to go out and fire it up. You don't have float bowls leaking and the stink of gas in your driveway. Your neighbors aren't complaining about your kid riding the motorcycle around
Noisy bike.
We're seeing this introduce a lot of youth into and they're controllable. When they get on one of these little bikes, you can set it up so they can only go 2 miles per hour. And you can give them a little more throttle each time, and it's easy. You don't have to have a degree. You don't have to be a Honda mechanic or a Harley mechanic.
All the signs point that we're headed this way. I want to get some real life estimations from you guys of when we're going to get there. I think
Tesla is building its 1 millionth car right now, right here. I mean, we're right down the road from SpaceX.
Absolutely.
1 million Teslas.
And
figure that out. 1 million. So I think that's also a good time to go out and say, well, AC's here to stay.
I think it is. I definitely is. Kirk, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, there's another sideline to that, and that plays into our business at a greater scale. Is when you have a car that goes, there's a certain scrappage rate of vehicles. It's a known number. So X number of vehicles are made, X number are going to get crashed or flooded, or a tree's going to fall. Something's going to happen. It's going to wind up in a salvage yard. Mm-hmm. Those vehicles in a salvage yard, you don't have to worry about it like an internal combustion engine where you have to worry about it locking up or getting moisture inside or anything like that. You have a drivetrain sitting in that car that's usable, that can be plugged into a multitude of other vehicles. So I think that there is, the opportunities here are staggering for fabrication shops, for tuners, where you have the EPA clamping down on race shops and installer facilities. Now you have a whole nother avenue that's available that is clean.
Yeah. You can't buy performance parts for your Harley in California. You can't buy performance parts for your car. Very few.
Well, that factor, yes, could accelerate the growth here. Here's what I'm getting at, though, and you're totally right with your Tesla stat, okay? But there's one thing that I got to throw out there, and that is the word tradition.
Yeah.
And the saying, old ways die hard. I liken this to what's going on in the broadcast industry. For years, they've told us cable's dying, Netflix is taking over, it's an over-the-top system, and we know all signs point to that, but people are slow to adapt. People are slow to give up their internal combustion engines. I don't know any friends that have an electrical vehicle yet. My question to you is, we know all the signs are pointing this way, we know we're trending this way. When is it really going to be here? When are people going to go out and get an electric pickup truck instead of the good old-fashioned?
We're bringing out some electric pickup trucks very soon, and I think that people will like them. People still own horses. Internal combustion's not going to go away. We have to have.
Right, good point.
It's a long tail.
It's not going away.
Yeah, and we need these things. We'll see diesel in a lot more usage, and the factories have already discussed that. And we have to have a diesel truck to go out and build the infrastructure and get 600 miles out into the middle of no place and start and continue building this infrastructure. And then for electric vehicles to drive on. We're not going to make electric pavers tomorrow or electric mixer trucks tomorrow, but we're going to be making things for electric vehicles to drive on. And this technology revolution that we're in the middle of right now, and my generation is blessed to have seen the beginning of it. When I was in high school, we didn't have email, we didn't have the internet. We had floppy disk computers, and our project was to write an algorithm to make it count. One,
I had
two,
an abacus.
3, 4, yeah. But the point is, now we're watching this technology revolution, and it's ready to just take off. Now we've got all of this stuff, and everybody is, at least the young people, are familiar with it.
Sure.
You talk to them about terabytes of data, and they're like, yeah, it's expected. Terabytes of data for me is something that 5 years ago would have taken a lifetime to accumulate. We just scanned my hydroplane. We're going to start 3D printing my race boat. We're building a 3D printer to 3D print a full-scale race boat. And the young people, the guys that I have working on that project, it's nothing for them. It's not something that's the future. It's what they expect to do today. So when will it change? I think that in 15 years you're going to see a significant change. My generation will kind of be out of it. The stuff that's coming up, the generation that's coming up that I haven't met yet, that's what their standard will be, period. That's what it will be. We watch racetracks close down across this country week after week, year after year. Racetracks are closing down because of noise.
Right.
We're watching electric get into rally racing, electric's going places, it's going every place. Not to some places, but now it's going every place.
And one of the other things I think will accelerate the acceptance or the transition is driving. Because if you haven't driven an electric car, these aren't the beginning of when cars first went to EFI, and it didn't work. It didn't run. It had
Chrysler K-Car was
they
not.
had a ton of issues with this. If you have a friend that has a Tesla, ask him to take you for a ride. I've had countless stories of guys who bought one just to see what it was like and let their wife drive it, and they never see the car again. Because it is phenomenal.
It's fun. It's fun. And from a racing standpoint, it's great because those other things that distract from it. People will ask me sometimes, why do we tape up our visors so much? It's not because I'm looking someplace else. It's not to prevent me from looking someplace else. It's because your brain is processing information that it sees peripherally. We don't need our brain energy processing that. We want it focused on one area. We don't look around. We're always looking at one spot, but the further we can narrow this down, the more focused it becomes. And take a look through your hand. Make a little tiny fist. If you wear glasses, you know this trick because you don't need your glasses doing it. An electric vehicle takes that sensation away, that noise, which of course it's cool, but it really lets you drive the vehicle, whether it's road racing. I've been fortunate enough to ride quite a few electric vehicles, and you can just focus on it. You can feel it, the torque, the pull. I've got IC engines that'll rip your lips off, but there's always the noise, and you're trying to, and as a driver, as a mechanic, you're diagnosing things. Is that the right sound? Does that sound like a rod knocking? What is that? When the noise is gone, you get to focus so much more on the drive, and it's incredible. It's a great experience.
And then if there is a noise,
If there is
There's a noise.
yeah,
That's
you
right.
stop.
Well, I see pros and cons here. I want to talk about the pros. I remember a while back, one of the dragster companies marketed the no maintenance dragster. It was an 890 detuned. All you had to do was change the oil. Well, I'm looking at you guys right now, and I'm thinking of Don Garlits because I had the pleasure of working with him a few times, and he told me what he loved about the sport is you take a few guys down to the junkyard when it first started, get yourself covered in grease and gas, and build yourself a car. Well, now what we understand is that not everybody has the know-how and mechanical ability. This has the potential, with what you said about that engine lasting longer than your refrigerator. When this combination comes together and gets dialed in, this will seriously, literally be the no maintenance dragster, right?
Yeah, very limited maintenance, but you know, unfortunately, we don't have. We need to revitalize to shops and training and vocational training in schools. You know, schools across this nation, the auto shops are closing down. Young people don't know how to work on a small block Chevy. Unfortunately, it's the reality of it.
Tragic.
It's tragic. They don't know how to machine parts. They don't have a welding class. They don't have a wood shop class. So these things that we had or don't exist. And people anymore, oftentimes it's an instant gratification. They don't want to wait around, you know, for a senior project and then another 3 years that they're going to tinker in the backyard. They don't have the junkyard anymore down the street. It doesn't exist. And or it exists, it's very limited when it does. So it's unfortunate. If we can get something that relates to society today, and electric does. It doesn't offend as many. It doesn't offend. You don't have to have had 3 years of shop class until starting out building Briggs & Stratton engines and then figuring out how to run a small block Chevy and rebuild the carburetor and then learn about fuel injection stuff and then learn about how to boost something and then get into all. It's complicated, man. It is. We love that about racing, but unfortunately, with the lack of those types of education options, if young people don't see something exciting, young people are buying Teslas and electric cars all day long. Now, if you can get them out to the track, you give them some performance upgrades, you build them a bigger battery, if you can get them a way that they can tweak their electric car, absolutely. I remember when import racing, when they said the same thing about imports, they said the same thing. This is nonsense, racing a Honda, a 4-cylinder, where's my Chevy? I was there. I was one of the guys that said that.
I was in the Honda.
I was wrong, yeah. And man, this stuff, look at it today. Import racing is alive, it's strong, it has a huge fan base, and electric racing will get the same thing than the next generation.
You need people like Steve, vehicles like this, things like, other racers that are shooting for goals to inspire people. Because that's what's going to get people off their asses and say, "Oh my God, I didn't think that could be done."
Can we go do you know what it's like to drive? I do know what it's like to drive or ride 200 miles per hour. Man, it's crazy. It's awesome, and to get that ride, for somebody to build a 200 mile per hour internal combustion engine, you've got to have a lot of time, a lot of experience, a hell of a lot of money, and a big crew. And don't get me wrong, I love it. It's fun. It's great, but. I want to show people that you can go out and you can do that in an electric car, and like Kirk was saying, it's not going to be long. In fact, a friend of mine is opening up an electric car salvage yard. We'll talk about that sometime later. But
yeah, there's so much. It's so interesting. I love it. It's so captivating. A couple cons that I got to bring up. And please take no offense to this whatsoever, okay? Because we see some negativity on YouTube. I just assume.
I read your comments.
Let me preface this. Let me preface this by saying this, though. By and large, people are so stoked and so behind what you're doing. I think the view count proves that. And I'd also like to say, with the negativity directed towards yours truly, I understand that. I could put sunshine and rainbows out there, and still a small percentage of people are going to say I suck and it's terrible. The downfall of what you're doing, according to the very small percentage, is that, hey, that thing doesn't make noise. That's not a show. That's not what drag racing is all about. How would you counter that?
I don't know. I don't necessarily disagree. I do think that that's a part that I wish we did. I wish it did make noise. If that's the worst thing that's the worst complaint that there is, well, so be it. But
I think that the sound of a race car or a hot rod, that's been a sound that's been around for a long time, and people got to ride in those cars, and they coupled those sounds with that sensation, like that feeling. I think that in the not too distant future, it's not going to be right away, but I think that in a not too distant future, when someone hears a hopped up EV, there's going to be a sound and a sensation that goes along with that.
When you hear tires wanting to rip away from a track, that's a sound that nobody's heard, and so it's violent. It's a very eerie sound. And listening to these track directors, track officials, safety officials, spectators, fellow racers, they come to me after a race and they're like, man, I could hear the tires all the way down at the big end of the track. And I've never, ever heard that before. I know it doesn't sound like a top fuel car, it doesn't punch you in the chest, but hey, the Nationals only come to town once a year. Motorcycle racing's great. There's your motorcycle, Jack, for instance, isn't very loud.
No, sure
Nobody
isn't.
complains about that. But
well, my take on it is this: drag racing was built on variety, and you have an excellent side attraction here that is so impressive and so cool. Speaking of how quiet it is, I got to say, there's one thing that I actually warn people about. Me being a longtime drag racing guy, this thing caught me off guard. I found myself getting maybe a little bit too close to you, trying to get those close shots, not realizing, oh my God, he's ready to punch the gas back off. Is there a danger there in that, when a top fuel dragster is revving up, getting ready to go, you go from perfectly quiet.
You know how we take care of this? I go like this. Hey, get out of the way.
Well, the problem is a lot of times I was back here, you were in go mode. I mean, the fault was all mine. Yeah. But I'm thinking, man, is that a concern?
But we've got some safety things that we'll just touch on real quick.
Yeah, let's do it.
Any of the stuff that's bright orange, if you just stay away from this. This is all our super high voltage stuff. If there were a crash or an accident that was going to happen, or that happens. This light, when this light is on, this is going to be standard on all EV race cars. Big bright red light. Say that 10 times fast. big bright red light. When that's on, high voltage is turned on. So if for anybody that is at a racetrack, if you happen to see it, if you're standing around an EV, take a look. If this big light's on, the guy's probably getting ready to go. So stand back. It's kind of like the car's idling. We also have one of these on the dashboard as well. I have another light on the dashboard after you'll see it when it gets on here, but we'll follow up when this is done. But a big reverse light, a big flashing, red on my dash to make sure that I know that I'm in reverse. But we've watched cars, internal combustion engines, fire up in the staging lanes, and they've been in reverse because they didn't have a safety switch on them and go launching backwards. We're going to be putting in some really cool safety features now that we didn't have, and 3 years ago we didn't really have the capability of doing it. Now we've got a checks and balance system to make this even safer. I'd like to think that our car was 5 years ahead of its time then, and now we're right back to being 5 years ahead of our time. It will be the epitome of a safe, reliable, technologically advanced, fast vehicle.
I love it. And of course, the fault is mine for putting that camera right next to your tire, trying to get that great shot for social media. One other thing I want to talk about here, because there's so many pros, there's only one other thing I got to talk about. I want to see if we could bring in our lovely assistant here from Cycle Drag, because I have a question for her. First off, what is your age, Steve?
Me? 53.
Yeah. And your age, sir?
57.
Excellent. You guys are right in the demographic. Now, here's the lovely assistant from Cycle Drag. Excuse me, ma'am. How old is your son?
19.
19. And just bought a car, right?
Correct.
How would you gauge his interest of driving or anything automotive related from like 16 to 19? Not, right?
This is first car at 19.
Yeah.
And all of his friends are pretty much the same.
Yep.
We know a woman named Destiny, 21, just got her first car, right?
Correct.
Excellent. So that's my real life example. Thank you very much for providing that real life example. So I got the evidence now for the question. The question is, this is new, this is cutting edge, this is current, but can we rely on the millennials, and more important than the millennials, the Gen Zers, the kids that are in high school now, to be interested enough in anything with wheels to keep this going?
God, I hope so. It is a challenge. This is me personally speaking now. I've got kids that were driving as soon as they could, and I'm from a motorsport family, so there's been a lot of enthusiasm around cars. I think that today the device in someone's back pocket gives them a degree of freedom and connectivity with their friends, and they're completely missing the boat on what real freedom is. And when I was a kid, getting on my motorcycle, getting in my car, and going, that was freedom. And I wish I could get that to the people who wait and say, maybe they, at some point they say, wow, I can't believe I waited this long. But I think if we could get more people in cars, and electric car, I believe they're less intimidating, even though they're incredibly powerful. If we can get people in them and experience that freedom, we have a lot more people engaged in this. That's my opinion.
And I think, I agree with that. And I think our next, when shop classes come back into schools, you're going to find electric shop classes. You're going to find young people learning how to work on electric vehicles. You're going to see a very, very smooth transition from robotics into electric vehicles. You will see these electronics into electric vehicles. You're not going to see today's students, hopefully they're not being taught how to work on a small block Chevy, because it's irrelevant to tomorrow and to their future. They don't need to learn about that. They do need to learn about what we're doing right now and what the new companies are doing and where these new technologies are going. And just as Kirk described, they've got this phone, this really powerful device that's there in their hands. And I mean, on tablets, making CAD files on tablets today that would have taken months to do just years ago.
Right.
And so now they have an opportunity to make these things, or to draw these things, to make these 3D models and scan this stuff, and go home and 3D print it. I mean, we're 3D printing race parts all of the time now back in Seattle at my place. The creativity, the creative juices will start to flow. And robotics classes will only start to turn into faster robots, and faster robots will become eventually just something that you can get the hell on in or surround yourself with that gets you further away from wherever you want to go, whether it's out into the desert, whether it's through the city. And the noise thing, back to the noise thing, man, I've got a Harley shop, man. I've raced top fuel bikes, I've ridden around top fuel cars forever, I raced boats. The noise is cool, but every place I go, our hydroplane racing, man, every year that lakes across the nation, that people want to shut us down. They buy this waterfront home, and there's this great hydroplane race on it every year. And every year there's some portion, at least, of the community that says, I don't want the noise. It's tough, and I don't disagree with them, but I don't completely agree with them. I wish it made noise, because that's all it's missing.
I love it, man. I love everything about what you're doing. You are just an innovator. You represent what drag racing should be. I appreciate this so much, guys. Before we go, would you like to introduce your hardworking crew over here and how these guys have played a role? I know they're hiding from the camera.
In the electric world, if anybody's in the electric world, they know Derek Barger. They absolutely know Derek. And I don't know, what do you want to add to this, Derek? What do you think?
To the point of the kids, we went into classrooms and we actually brought in scooters and started a EV club, and actually we're teaching kids, and they are very excited. So I think if teachers would bring in electric vehicle type programs into the school, it actually motivates the students quite a bit, and they learn math, science, everything. It's actually well-rounded if you start working on these electric vehicle cars. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it is. I know my company and myself have worked with the University of Wyoming and their Formula SAE team, and they jumped in for the first time this year at the University of Wyoming, and they stepped right into the deep end. They want to do an electric hybrid and Formula S, and that's a tough thing, man. It's a world, it's a college, university competition, schools from around the world, and it's tough. But that's what they want to do. They don't want to use a motorcycle engine in a car like everybody did 10 years ago in Formula SAE. So, what do you think of our car, Derek? What do you think? Where do you think we stand? You're familiar with all the cars.
Well, I'm familiar with every car practically.
Yeah.
Is this a 200-mile-an-hour car? That's the big question.
His name's on this car for a reason.
I worked on Don's car. I
Really?
actually made him go that fast with my battery. So,
Wow, I did not know you worked on. Is Don okay with you crossing over into enemy territory here?
I don't know.
And how much did you have to pay this man to get him free from Don Garlits? Wow.
No, Derek was free when he wasn't free, but he was available.
We better take him out for a steak or something,
we
man.
do.
Oh,
We do.
wow.
We're getting
He's
that
good
stuff.
to me.
Yeah.
He's very good to me.
That's amazing.
Electric cars have been in my life pretty much.
Okay.
As far as it goes for the past 20 years. electric racing. I got started in electric racing and building batteries for a Kilocycle team.
Oh yeah, I remember those guys.
Yeah.
They were out of where? What state was
Colorado.
that? I remember
That's
those
where I'm
guys.
from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Scotty Polachek, you know, Scotty.
Oh, Scotty Polachek.
Scotty's from Seattle. I've known Scotty for a long time. Yeah, all these guys. You know, this stuff's been around, man.
My buddy Jeff Dissinger. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Jeff,
He still
I still
he
build
still rides.
packs for him.
Okay.
Yep, Jeff was.
He actually helped us with this car.
He helped us with this car. Jeff came out with Dirk.
helped.
And of course, with this, I'm sure you're involved with or knew about what the Spider-Man did with the Lawless Industries Orange County Choppers bike.
You know, I built that.
You built that? Oh my
I got a
God,
future example.
man!
You didn't watch the episode. You didn't see me on the show.
Well, you've changed a little bit. You look even more handsome.
No,
That was what?
as big as I was.
That was a good decade ago, by the way. And I know Larry McBride. He said at first, man, that thing was really tough to ride, and they made everybody made a lot of positive changes.
Yes.
And you guys got the record.
Yeah. So I built 3 different battery packs for that. We started out with A123 battery pack on that one. And we went over to my own type of cells afterwards. But we did set a record on the A123 pack. We set a record on the second pack. We set a record on the third pack. But this pack is incredible. This is one of the biggest packs I've ever built in my life. It's 1.6 million watts.
Oh my gosh.
Is available to him. We've got a second one as well. So if he needs to double, we can double.
Wow.
We're not limited on power on this. There is no reason. There's 2,000 horsepower available.
Good.
So there's no reason not to set the record.
Well, you certainly know.
You know we're gonna send it.
That's right.
Having been on both sides, do you see any similarities between Don Garlits and Steve Hoff? Or is it totally different schools of
They're both
thought?
very ambitious people, and they both love racing. They're both great people. I don't have anything bad to say about either one of them.
Neither do I. I've worked. You know, hey, I had the pleasure of working with Don Garlits a few times, man. I love it. He's still sharp as can be too for his age, man. What a legend.
I loved working with him. It was great. It was incredible.
It sure was, man.
Well, I've got some, you know, like I said, you know, with Larry Carroll behind me, Derek Barger by my side, I don't see how we can go wrong. You know, I've got Mad Dash.
We got to
over
give
here.
this fine young man a shout
Mad
out.
Dash, Mike Watson. You know, he's been with me for
Nice
20
to meet
years,
you, sir.
Going chasing every crazy dream I've ever had. You know, he's been my right hand, been there. You know.
What's it been like for you chasing history with this wild man over here?
Oh man, it's been fun. I gotta say, he was probably a pretty special case. I was in a bad motorcycle accident, and he had asked me to come to work with him at a shop, and here I am today.
Rest is history, man. You never thought you'd be working on an electric dragster, did you?
Never ever. I wasn't really even interested until I seen the thing go down the track, and it definitely caught my interest.
That's very cool. What's been the biggest challenge for you in terms of working on this thing?
Well, I don't really know a whole lot about electronics, so
Got you.
that's and I'm learning every day.
Well, this
We're
may...
all learning every day. I've learned every time we've taken the car out. We've learned new lessons, and as far as learning about just electricity, the functions, the circuitry, the constructions of this lithium polymer battery, the technical side of it. You know, I know what AC is, I know what DC is, but what the details are, the devil's in the details, man. And learning from an expert like Derek is again just, you know, like he is to electric racing when Jim McClure was the top fuel racer.
Oh, yeah. The Godfather.
This is you know, he is, period. There's no, it's not less, man. I mean, what he's done with electric vehicles and the innovations and the batteries and the BMS systems and the combinations and this attention to detail, there's one way to do it, and that's the right way, period. And you know, he that's what he thinks. You know, McClure was the same way. The development of the overkill, the 4-valve heads. I mean, it was just the list of innovations goes on. And I know there were many others, but McClure was my teacher, and you know, Larry had Elmer Trett. Elmer was the same way, man. It was just innovation after innovation, and this is EV racing's Elmer Tratt, Jim McClure, etc.
So cool, man. Well, we're rooting for you. We love what you do. Is there anything anyone would like to add? This has been awesome, by the way. Thank you so much, AEM. Thank you to all of you. This is the cure for boredom when we're getting attacked by Corona and everything's shut down. Just stay inside on a rainy night here in California.
We're locked into the AEM shop. Shit, some stuff's gonna go down.
Any closing thoughts? Anything anyone would like to add here?
I'm just looking forward to seeing the track. I really am.
Wait, I think we all are.
Yeah, we're going to, hopefully I'm renting a track here this next week. We've got to let some of this rain stop, and we'll go out. We'll go get a track. Unfortunately, we're not able to attend the races that we were scheduled to attend this weekend or next because we had races both weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday events, but now there cannot be groups of 250 or more, so these races have been canceled. Long Beach Grand Prix was just canceled. Our MotoGP in Texas was canceled.
All because of coronavirus concerns.
Yeah.
Invite everybody from the internet, 240 people to come out to the track.
Yeah, there you go. 249 of you guys can come out and watch
You
us.
know what? Here's the beauty. Here's the beauty of the digital age. If you want me there, I'll be there for you.
We're gonna, you know we're calling on you. But
hey, like I said, that first video that we did 4 months ago with you, 199,000 views.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And only 5%.
200. Let's say rewind this whole thing. Find that video on Jack's YouTube channel. Check out Steve Huff Motorsports. Follow us on all of our stuff. You'll be able to loop right back to Jack. And let's change that to 200,000, please.
I like it. We're getting close, and this is getting so exciting. Is gravitating towards. Here goes Steve once again, looking for history. Oh, gets close to the center line, corrects the problem. Steve, one heck of a great driver. 811, 169. Steve Huff. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see if he can do it. It's all about being first. Steve said he fell in love with speed when he was a young boy and started pointing his bicycle down the biggest hill he could possibly find. Fell in love with driving in 1989. As Steve mentioned to us, this would be the greatest accomplishment of his career if he could beat the legend, Big Daddy Don Garlits, to 200 miles an hour. 800 volts, 2,000 amps. It's a monster. Blows the tires away again. Oh, give him a little... Impressive runs throughout the weekend. Final run coming up. Steve Huff and Current Technology. .410's flash. This electric machine making some big time power. 814.17. This has been awesome. I really hope you guys enjoyed this and found this interesting. If you have any questions, leave them below, because guess what? I got 4 guys. You think you guys can get on there and maybe answer some questions?
Yeah, we're stuck indoors with the coronavirus outbreak, so yeah, we're happy to reply. So.
Well, I want to say thank you so much. Your shop is amazing. What you guys do in motorsports is amazing. Well, we're actually supposed to go like that. I'll give you a handshake anyways. Guys, thank you for all your hard work. Thank you for everything you've done for electric drag racing. Man, I'll tell you what, anything else we need to add here?
Quest for 200 is about to be over.
Ow! Ladies and gentlemen, you could be looking at the first 200-mile-an-hour electric dragster, Don Garlits. You better watch out. These guys are coming.
Layouts that are EV specific. So
There's a different format, different design. It's just going through some demo mode. Progressive shifting lights, you can use them for indicators. Some little bit, something old school maybe. Just the one that the Porsche Duster is based off of.
How about everybody give me 2 fingers for 200 miles an hour?
gas and methanol on top. So it's staged injection, so you don't need an air filter.
Good Lord. That is one amazing vehicle.
I'll bet you 100,000 hours.
Check out the seats. Yeah, that's a Lexus ISF.
Few goodies. That's beautiful. Look at it. Now, I'm sorry, what contest did this bike win?
Easy Ride Rodeo is a sled pull.
Tractor sled pull in Seattle 20 years ago.
Beautiful. My goodness. This thing's awesome. And then we have Mr. Kolstad's bike over here.
Absolutely, yeah.
Super Hooligan.
Yep, this is my XG, the Huff Motorsports XG Destination Hunt. Our Huff Motorsports team, we have 3 bikes going now.
I love it, Steve. Now, Steve, I don't know if you know a good electrician, but you need some lights in your trailer.
Hey, it's unplugged, man. It's up in the truck.
Beautiful, man. Well, we'll definitely do more on this in the light. We want to thank our friends from AEM, and we want to thank all of Steve Hoff Motorsports for giving us this inside look at their goal, their pursuit of history. Only one can be first. And we want to ask you in the comments, who will be first? Will it be Don Garlits? Will it be Steve Hoff? Will it be somebody else that we're not counting on? We know that this means the world. This means everything to Big Daddy, and the same can be said for Steve Hoff. They have dedicated so much time, so much of their lives to this endeavor, the very first 200-mile-an-hour electric dragster run. Big Daddy Don Garlits set his record of 189 miles per hour in July of 2019. Steve Hoff set his at 180 miles an hour. That was in September of 2017. But these cars are quickly evolving, quickly changing. And we ask you, will that 200 number come up on the scoreboard this year? Will we see it? Will we see this historical achievement? And will we see more electric dragsters? Maybe someday we'll have enough for an 8-car field. Wouldn't that be cool? Leave us your thoughts, your opinions, your expertise. As we said, if you have any questions, leave them below. If you want to debate with the experts, we'll get them on here. We'll get their take. But more than anything, we really hope you enjoyed this inside look into AEM and Steve Hoff Motorsports. Stay with us here on the Cycle Drag YouTube channel. We are just getting started. Enjoy. Thank you, everybody, for subscribing to Cycle Drag on YouTube. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the comments, and thank you for also liking CycleDrag.com on Facebook. Share it with your friends. If you keep it growing, we're going to keep bringing you awesome stuff like this. Thanks a lot. Wait a minute. Is it the legendary Jesse James? Are you really the legendary Jesse James?
Sometimes, only in my own mind.
What do you got on your hat?
Cycle Drag.
You're the man. Do you watch the Cycle Drag YouTube channel?
No, but you should.
We hope that you'll start watching, and I appreciate it.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, the legend! The legend is here. How are you doing, sir?
I'm cycle dragging. That's what I'm doing. Cycle dragging forever and ever and ever.
You are the man. Sweep the leg, right?
Sweep the leg, no mercy, and cycle dragging.
Brad here, 20-time Top Fuel champion, world record holder. And one thing I'd like to do would be thank CycleDrag.com on Facebook. And I'd like for everybody to watch and view Cycle Drag on YouTube. People that help us out, help our sport out a lot. And if you don't support them, it's hard for us to give you support, guys. And just keep supporting my man Jack, and we'll be here a long time.
We got the sweet taste of victory over here in the winner's circle. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing to the Cycle Drag YouTube channel. We're celebrating 100,000 subscribers. Yes, Steve is one of them. Thank you, Steve. Please refer your friends. Remember, as many people as we can get to subscribe to this channel, the more exposure we can give great motorsports individuals. Thank you guys for watching. That is Cycle Drag on YouTube, cycledrag.com on Facebook. Let's keep it going. We appreciate it, guys. 100,000 strong on the Cycle Drag YouTube channel. We invite you to join in. Please hit subscribe. Please refer friends. Please like cycledrag.com on Facebook, and we will keep it coming. Remember, all your questions, comments, and insight below, and we'll get them answered by the experts. Thanks so much, everybody. If there's fast motorcycles or electric dragsters involved, we're in. Cycle Drag rolls on.